Hello, and welcome back to another episode of my podcast where I talk about a whole bunch of different things, primarily fiber related. Right now, that includes things like my knitting and crochet. But I can honestly see myself talking about my other craft/hobby related things when those things might arise. It is October 30th, so I am donning my Superstitious Pullover by Michael Shawn. It is my Halloween spooky sweater that I knitted this year and officially finished blocking and all that good stuff a couple weeks ago now, earlier in October. And my goal was to have it done at least for October so I could wear it throughout the month, and I am pleased to report that I have worn it many times at this point, and I still love it as much as I did when I wore it for the first time. So sad that I'll have to, actually no, I've already determined I will probably end up wearing this throughout the fall and sweater season, but I love it. It wears well, the drape is wonderful, and I like it a lot. So that is what I'm wearing today. If you have not seen the full FO photos, I have those on my Ravelry. I also threw that in the last episode's video, so you can see a full photo of what that looks like, as you can only see part of it here. With that, we're going to jump straight into my other FOs that I have, because I do have two for this week. We're going to start with the Lift Your Spirits Shawl by Mandobug. That was part of a mystery crochet along earlier this fall. I think it started in September and it ended 2 weeks ago, I think. And I was a little bit behind. I changed my mind about what I wanted to do along the way. So I ran out of yarn, and then I ran out of beads. But I am pleased to say that I have finished it off last weekend. I was able to block it and get all the ends woven in, and I got to wear it to work yesterday as it was the last work day before Halloween. I don't have FO photos yet, but I will insert my super classy bathroom photo because I just love the outfit that I put together. It is ghost themed. My dress has ghosts on it, and I have smiling ghost nails that I will feature. These are nail wraps by Lillian Fox that I won through Mandobug's giveaway early on in the mystery crochet along, because ghosts. And here's my shawl. So you can see lots of ghosties. There's 12 ghosts on this shawl. There's 4 at the top and 8 at the bottom, and I will show the bottom since that is where the fun little tails are. And I like the wispiness of the ghost tails. I feel like it just makes it kind of like a fun tattery looking shawl, and I use tattery in a good way. All of my ghosts are outlined in seed beads that glow in the dark. They need to be charged with UV light, so either sunlight or I have a UV light, a little flashlight that I can hold on it, and that's how I've been able to get some pretty decent photos of the beads showing up. But yeah, I used Knit Picks Stroll Tonal. It's a fingering weight yarn in Pearlescent is the colorway, and so it gave me a lot of like natural creams, like white tones and grays, which I thought were really nice for ghosts. And it also was a little more affordable option for me at the time versus the hand-dyed yarn that was available through the crochet along. I feel like they looked like it kind of matches the look that the original yarn was going for, and so I'm really pleased that I was able to find kind of like a substitute, so to speak. So that is my shawl. You can hear the beads kind of rustling together depending on how they move. That's kind of a Like, I just like touching it. I hadn't beaded crochet or knit work before, so this was my first time working with beads and fiber like this, and it was really nice. It was a nice experience, and I could definitely see myself doing it again. So that's my first FO. My second one is my play on the Fruity Feet socks by Drops Design, and where did I put those? So I called this a kind of FO last time. I was cheating because I still had the ends to weave in, but they were pretty much done, and I have now woven in my ends. So these are my dragon fruit socks. I'm using a Sorella yarn for the main color, and when I saw this yarn, it reminded me, it was not dragon fruit related at all, but the color scheme with the pinks, the whites, and the spots of black reminded me of dragon fruit, and I thought it would pair really nicely with a bright green and with the frilly look of the cuff. Just thought it would be like the perfect pattern to make some themed socks. So I have two. I haven't tried on the second one, but when I finished the first one I tried it on and it fit beautifully. So I know that they will fit wonderfully and feel really nice to wear. So I'm looking forward to that. I think I've talked about this before. The pattern, if I hadn't knit socks before, there are parts of the pattern that were a little confusing, and I kind of had to make some of my own inferences while I was working through it, solely based on the motions that I had gone through with other socks. So I don't know if it would be a good pattern for a beginner. Also, the original pattern calls for color work because it is watermelon themed. There's black that gets laced through the main part of the sock for like the watermelon seeds. Super cute, and I do want to make the I saved them because I want to make with the watermelon socks someday, but for now, with the yarn that I had, I thought it would be a fun way to use up that yarn. So that is FOs. Diving into whips, I have my Tidings to You by Amy Gunderson. This is still very much going on. It is the 2020 Jimmy Beans Craft Vent pattern and set, so from last year. And if you're new here, my mom and I work on this pattern every week, usually Saturday mornings, and we have made some progress. Make sure I'm showing you the right side though. So now you'll really be able to see that. Not that it was a problem before seeing the red, but bam! In fact, we introduced a new color last week. We'll get further today, but it's like kind of a caramel color, so it makes me think of cherry pie. I just can't get that image out of my head with the bright red and like the brown crust kind of color. It's a little more of a yellow brown, but still a really pretty brown. So we're moving right along. I think we're on, I was looking at it last week to try and figure out how much we had left. I think we started like section 16, and not every section, like the way the pattern's right now, it is like December 15th you do this, December 16th you do this, and not every day has a pattern associated with it because there's other goodies in like the craft vent. Like it's super cute pair of scissors was date December 10th, and so it'll note that in the pattern too. So we're on 16, and I think there's 24, 25, I can't remember if there's 25 days that are represented in the pattern. So we're getting there. But some parts have longer sections and some parts have shorter sections, so just kind of, it makes it really hard to gauge how much we actually have left, to be honest. But we're just, you know, going with it, and it'll get done when it gets done. So it's been a lot of fun working on that. And I have the warm colored version from last year, and my mom is working up the cool colored version from last year. And it's just kind of fun seeing the different colors we get when we open up a new color. We've already opened them, so we've already seen all the colors. But, you know, that was last December where we saw all of them, and it's kind of like another surprise getting to each new color as we work them up. And it's fun comparing how different our shawls are looking with the different colors that we're using. I have my last Halloween project well on the way, and I wasn't so stressed getting this one done by Halloween, just because I think the color palette will still lend itself well to fall in general, and I plan on wearing it in the fall. Like I probably won't wear my ghost shawl much more this year, but my Betwixt Shawl by Ombo O'Brien I will definitely wear. I'm getting pretty close to running out of my C1, my color one. I know I'm getting very close to starting the last section, which is a third color. So I've been working 2 colors this whole time. Some of my absolute favorite Halloween colors. In fact, you probably just saw it when I was trying to rearrange it. Purple and orange. And we're in Mosaic B, I believe, is part of the pattern, where it is changing from this floral pattern of mostly orange, and then you have the purple flowers, to a more geometric. It kind of like blends into this geometric section, which I think looks pretty cool. With the variegated, it's a little harder to see, but I think the patterning is really cool. And I kind of like that it's a little more subtle here. So I'm really pleased with how it is so far. I know I have less than 20 rows left of this section. This is an 80 row section, which is kind of insane to think about. Let's see, I can't remember if it started below that last line of flowers or if it started in the geometric section, but that will be 80 rows by the time I'm done with it. And this is what I have left. So that's my C1, my C2. These are both by Desert Panda Fiber Arts. I bought them at my very first fiber festival and knew that they would become a Halloween shawl and enter the Betwixt Shawl, and it was perfect. My last color will be a sparkly black fingering weight yarn that I hand dyed myself, and it will be the skull lace edging that goes across the bottom of the shawl. And that is a completely solid color. Like, I did everything in my power to make it a tonal. I mean, no, like a solid. Sorry. Still getting used to the language of the different colors, but I'm pretty sure, like, when I was rinsing and everything, it looked like it was a very consistent, very deep dark black, and that is exactly what I wanted. So that way the skull had the best chance of showing up. I think they would have looked really nice in like a sparkly white too, but I think the black will be really spooky and fun. So I'm excited to get to that part. So many people have been finishing their shawls and they all look beautiful. And after blocking, those skulls just really pop out of the lace. Like, you can't really see them too well while it's working up, but that's a prime example of blocking working absolute magic. So soon, I will be there soon. So that's been the project that I actually work on at work during like my lunch break or early in the mornings before I clock in. And so I've just kind of been, noodling away at that, doing a few rows at a time. Well, a couple rows at a time now that they're getting longer. And then my at-home project is my Autumn Doodle cowl as part of the Autumn Doodle crochet along by PNW Knit Design, Pacific Northwest Knit Design. Ooh, that was close to falling off the needles. So I only started this a couple weeks ago because I was late in joining the party and getting my yarn. But I'm already almost done. I'm on the last section. I just started it last night. Granted, I probably have a good 6 inches left to knit up, but I love it so much. So I think I was just either beginning my hearts or finishing my hearts the last time I showed this on the podcast. So last weekend, actually, I know I was here, and last weekend I did all of this to the pumpkins, I think, top of the pumpkins. I mean, look at that. Like Saturday night and Sunday night, I did all of that. Like, it blows my mind how quickly I worked through this. I can't believe it. I did add a 5th color, my gray, from this sweater. And overall, like, I was really worried about how I was gonna balance my colors because I was having a hard time choosing it. But I feel like I wouldn't change anything about it. At first, I was most concerned about my gray background with the orange, but I think it looks really good. And it just kind of splits up some of the other colors. Like, I knew pretty early on that I needed to save quite a bit of brown for this dot section because this section at the top here is going to be a lot longer than this, and I'd already used 20 grams for this. So I was kind of panicking going, shoot, I really wanted brown to be a pretty big player in this for like a background color. And I just decided to take that out of the running, and like I knew I wanted to use it for the acorn section here. And so I just kind of added in my 5th color, played around with what I had left, and that's what I have. So orange leaves, brown acorn. I really like this section with the red background. My pumpkins, of course, that I was thinking I was going to do in orange, and then I quickly decided, after seeing all of the other beautiful ones with colored backgrounds and like a cream neutral, like the icon is in that neutral color, I was like, I'm going to do that. So white pumpkins, and then I decided along the way that I really wanted the different typical leaf colors represented. So we have our orange, we have our brown leaves, and we have that beautiful red on the cream background. And that's one of my favorite sections. So then I added one extra border up here because I decided, well, I am a little concerned about running out of my brown. So I went longer than the recommended for the color work here to try and save some brown. And you know, honestly, depending on what I end up with once I'm done, I might have enough yarn to make a coordinating hat. So that's pretty exciting. So that is my autumn doodle cowl. I love it. I love the colors. Don't mind my awful seam. Clearly I need to figure out, I didn't know that you could start new rounds and have like a seamless transition between the rows. So clearly this is gonna go on my neck and not be visible when the time comes, but it'll wrap. Oh, I keep ripping out my provisional cast on. Shoot, hold on. I've done that twice now where I just completely ripped through it without realizing it because my string gets tucked somewhere, and then I move my cowl and it all rips out, and I need to stop doing that. So it'll go something like this, but better since it won't be on the needles and have a million ends sticking out. So that is super exciting. I am just very pleased with the way this is working out and with how quickly it's working out. In fact, I was pretty sure that there was no way I was going to finish for the end of the cowl tomorrow, but I might. So we'll see. Outside of the knitting that I'll be doing with my mom later this morning, that is like my priority project for the rest of this weekend, because I think excuse me, I think it'll be close. I think I can at least have it all the way knitted. It will not be blocked, and it will not have the ends weaved, the ends woven in. Like, there's no way. And actually, I'm probably going to cheat because I'm doing the infinity version that's a tube. I'm honestly probably just going to tie them and trim them down, because once I Kitchener stitch it together, no one's ever gonna see, like, there's no risk of the ends popping out anywhere because it's double-sided. So the ends will be stuck in between anyway. So why weave them in? So that's my plan right now for that, and it's just to tie it off and call it good. Oh, wow, we are already only 20 minutes in and I'm already at the last part of it. This is going so fast. My last whip, I started my next Traveling Seasons Afghan square, and that is the August square by TL Yarn Crafts. And I was so excited to see her square design get released, especially after I knew what color. I mean, I had all the yarn dyed before her square got released, but look at how perfect. As soon as I saw it, I was like, so Falling Leaves, I think, is what this is called. Doesn't show up very well on camera, I guess, but let me see if I can fix that. Can't see if it's focusing or not. But there's a little leaf stitch on a bed of single crochet, and it's just perfect. I love it so much. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a prettier stitch pattern for my fall yarn, because that is why I dyed it for fall. The squares have been working up quickly. Now that we're getting closer and closer to the end of this year's Traveling Seasons Afghan, I am, I won't say concerned, because at the end of the day, it's just a blanket, you know, but I have not figured out how I want to go through and make my squares the same. I had a pretty hard time meeting gauge. No, take that back. I've met gauge pretty decently throughout the blanket. However, my sizes weren't lining up with what they're supposed to be. So it's supposed to make 13-inch squares. And mine, after blocking, if I'm lucky, I'm sorry, my throat is dry. If I'm lucky, I can get 11 inches. So I have quite a bit of extra space, and I'm not sure if I want to, like, I'll just have to lay it out once I have the squares done. But that's the thing, I can't really plan until I have all of them done, and I've tried really hard. So of course I'm going off the first one with the measurements, and I've had to make adjustments along the way to every single square. So I think this pattern has taken a little more brain power than ideally it would have, because I'm making modifications to quite a few of them, whether it's width-wise or height-wise. And some of them that works better for than others. So it's been, I'm not going to say exhausting, because it hasn't been. I really like the project and I'm really glad that I'm doing it, but I really wish that I could have gotten the measurements a little bit easier. And, you know, if I would have used the called for yarn, I probably would have, but I didn't. I wanted to go this route, so that's my cross to bear, if you will. But I have to figure out if I want to put a border around all of them. And even though I tried really hard to keep them similar in size, they're not exactly all the same size. So do I have to add and fake a little more border on some of the blocks versus some of the other blocks? And if I do a border, do I want to keep it the same color as the block, even though it'll clearly be a border versus going in pattern? Or do I want to make it stand out and do a border, but then if it's uneven, it'll look weird? So there's a lot of things that I have to make decisions for in order to just get to the part where I can seam all of the blocks together. So even though I would have loved to seam them as I went, I knew that I wouldn't be able to, because I saw pretty early on, in fact by square through, I was like, okay, we're gonna have to figure something out to make this work at the end. And so this way it'll just be easier to have my blocks still separate blocks, so I can lay them out, see where the differences are between them, because I mean, at least for the rows, the ones across need to match height-wise. And then the columns need to match width-wise. And so seeing how they all play out will tell me, hopefully, what I need to do in order to get it to a place where I can seam them. I could also seam them together as is, assuming they're close enough that I can kind of like stretch and make it work when I'm seaming. Because you can hack that and then maybe just put a border around the whole thing. But with each square missing 2 inches, that's going to be a big border. We'll see. We'll see. I'd like it to be a big blanket. I'm a fan of big blankets. But it's also very drapey. Like, I've had to use hook sizes that I don't have to usually use. I think this one's just a 6.5. But I had to bust out my Tunisian crochet hook set, my very cheap one, I might add, for some of these squares, because I needed like an 8mm hook. And I don't use an 8mm hook very often. Like, before that, the crochet hook that I had, no, I have a 10mm and I didn't need to go that crazy. But I think the biggest one I have of like my regular crochet hooks is a 6.5. I don't think I have a bigger one than that outside of my 10mm. So I was severely lacking between there, and then I remembered my Tunisian crochet hook set. So luckily I was able to kind of use those and get by. But I've been all over the place with the crochet hook size that I've used. Like, I can't remember, I think I might have used a 5 and a 5.5 on some. A lot of them have been 6, 6.5. I've done 7 or 7.5, 8, I can't quite remember. I'm making notes in my Ravelry like no other. I've broken out each square, which colors I'm using, links to each square pattern, so it's easy for me to go back to, you know, because I don't usually just sit down and work through it all at once. I'm working on it over days. And measurements before and after blocking, how much yarn I used for each square. So I'm trying to keep pretty good notes on all of that information. And yeah, so it's been a really fun, really big project that got a little more complex than I thought it would. But I can't say that I'm surprised, because I'm doing my own thing with it. So anyway, I'm excited to see where that goes. I haven't really thought about what 5th color I would bring in for any kind of border, because I'm pretty sure whether it's around the individual blocks or around the whole blanket, I think I want to bring in like a color that's different from all of the others. I want it to stand out, coordinate, but stand out. And I don't really know what to pick. Cream comes to mind, but that seems, maybe I'll do like a gray. Something neutral is what it'll most likely be, because I already have a lot of color in my blanket and I don't want to take away from that. Like, I want that to be part of like the focal point, is the different colors that I use to dye the yarn. So it will definitely be a neutral of some kind. It's just a matter of what that ends up being and how it gets used. So that is where I'm at currently. I have some plans coming up. In fact, actually I did get accepted for I haven't applied for many tests this year, but I applied for a knit pattern test that I thought would make for a really nice Christmas gift. So I have yarn coming for that. It is a cowl using like an Aran weight yarn. I'm using some yarn from Knit Picks, And so once that arrives and once the pattern is ready to test, I will have that. In fact, I already have a project set up on my Ravelry, but that's about as far as I got. And then I have been obsessing over TL Yarn Crafts Juniper Cowl as part of the Arboreal collection she just released. And I had been trying to find an excuse to make the pattern, and then I realized I have my Halloween minis that I originally dyed for my Betwixt Shawl that I was thinking I was going to use until I saw the pattern released, and then I decided I would rather use my minis for a pattern where they can go next to each other. And guess what? The Juniper Cowl, all of the colors are next to each other. And I'm kind of mad at myself for not making the connection earlier, because I think the patterns have been out for about a week now, at least. And I'm thinking I don't have a set of mini skeins that I could you know, use for that. Like, I have a pretty large set of mini skeins. I think there's like 24. But I don't want to split them up for a project, and I didn't want to use all 24 for that because it really only calls for 10. But my 12 set of mini skeins that are Halloween themed. If you don't remember what those look like, I'll make sure to insert a photo. Those will be perfect because I can make slight modifications to add 2 more colors pretty easily. And that, I think, is what I'm gonna do. It's almost like they were meant for each other because I wasn't sure what I was gonna make with them. And that gives me an excuse to make that pattern. So, yeah. I still need to work on my Make 9 list for 2022. I'm sure I have 3 projects left from this year's that I'll probably just end up moving to 2022. Probably. We'll see what happens between now and the end of the year. And then I gotta come up with the other 6 that I'd like to make for next year. Until next time, if you have anything that you'd like to talk about in the comments below, let me know. All of my projects and everything about them that I feel is important to share is on my Ravelry. I try to keep that updated as best as I can. In fact, I obsessively update it. So everything is in my Ravelry. And that's where I'll leave it for now. Talk to you later.